Huh? Okay. So anyway, that was so. I'm gonna let Louise kind of introduce herself to you as well. And I just want to give that very personal introduction as she begins to read. And so I'm just gonna let her come in, talk a little bit, and say hello, and let you guys sit back and just listen to some poetry. Right? How about that?
Hey everyone. Hi ladies. How y'all doing down there? Good. That's good. I was just telling Randall before we got on that. So I'm in Wisconsin, like right next to Canada, damn near. Um, and it was just storming, raining, thundering, but the sun was shining the whole time. So that was really pretty. Well, bonjour. I'm Ojibwe, like Randall said. My name is Louise Waakaa'igan. I am a poet, thanks to that gentleman right there. Took a chance on my manuscript, and this is it. I hope y'all can see it. So this is my very first collection. This is where, and actually with that fellowship that he was talking about, I'm getting another opportunity to tour, because right when the book came out, COVID happened, right? So nobody went anywhere. So all we did was stay on Zoom and talk about poetry, which was cool. But it's nice to be, face to face with someone and share that experience with each other. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna tour and change the world with poetry. So you guys want to hear a poem? Yeah. Like most of my stuff is what I call melodramatic, like sappy or sad, maybe. I don't really know. But we'll do the title piece. This is where. Um, all right, y'all. I'm from Beneshi's bloodline. That's Bill Baker if you don't speak Ojibwe Moan. Ni Migizi Dodem. I'm from 6 Mile, 49 and up the driveway, sitting on green boxes, watching cars. Sometimes their doors didn't match. I'm from Packer games on Sundays, Greyhound trips for Christmas, and Easter baskets with Carla. I'm from women with the same last name and a father none of us knew. I'm from the woods, northern, where pines and birch bark blanket both bends of tribal roads, paved and gravel. I'm from a single parent household. Michael Jackson cassette tapes, Purple Rain posters, and latchkey kids. Title V programs, commodes on pantry shelves, cucumbers from Grandpa Jake's garden, and a mean old dog named Turkey. I'm from crying won't change anything, and you should have known better. I'm from punitive silence and where it's normal. Hugs are warm and forced Catholicism still weighs heavy on Nimama's shoulders. This is where. So usually after a poet gets done reading, everybody in the room goes like that. It's like the instead of clapping, I don't know, it's kind of like a cool little vibe, right? So you'll see that snapping fingers. So Randall knows all about that. He gets a lot of snaps after his poetry. But yeah, that poem was created from like a list exercise, just taking where am I from and just listing things, like Wisconsin, Alabama, just little things, and then just kind of rearranging them into different stanzas, into poems. And that's where that one came from. Randall talked about being a part or being inside Department of Corrections. I was not ever in juvenile settings, but I did spend a good portion in an adult facility where most of my poetry was crafted, where it was edited and put into a collection that we have right here. So I'll read another one. This is called Within. I wrote this when I was confined in a county jail for a year due to bed management from Department of Corrections, which was completely out of my hands. We were just shifted around. And I couldn't see the moon for like 13 months. I couldn't see the sky. So I wrote about it. And that was the only way I knew how to survive at that point in time. So Within was created from that experience. I'm a woman gray within shadows, losing my sense of normalcy through the monotony that freezes my already cold spine. My hands never warm. Am I not created for more? The crude cement cell block erases the moon. My dreams sense no guidance, my tears no destination, my scars still wound. When will my ancestral guide return? I carve my sternum, I carve the holiness out, ceasing my breath, the genesis of my fear. I am not home. Where is my Bamadiziwan? I'm a foreigner in my own land, a ghostless shadow begging to be remembered for more than my solitude. Where are my well-worn moccasins to guide me home? Who will carry this desolation when these Magizi wings are too dirty from the thundering storms? Savior, I am within my kaleidoscope, breaking and failing my breath again. Ni mama, I miss your home. Ngozi, I still smell your morning breath. Abba, I. So one of the things that I like to do with my poetry is intermingle Ojibwe. Oh, you guys are cool. Hey. Thank you for that. Much appreciated. But one thing I like to do with my poetry is intermingle Ojibwe language with English, right? Because as an Ojibwe artist, my language is really, really important to me. So if there was a couple words in there that you didn't understand, it was probably the Ojibwe language. And it's a beautiful language. So one of the ways that Ojibwe people.
Can you talk a little bit about, and this goes for anybody who's writing, about how important it is to remember the language that you practice in, or the language that you respect as you're writing your own work. And even for me, in my own way, I respect that, or I try to bring that in. Even if it's nothing but just the vernacular of the Black experience in some kind of way that's just sort of symbolic to that specific group, you're teaching too, right? And so we're learning about that language as we hear that, as we get that from you, and that's part of a sort of writer's journey as well. Or I don't say it's necessarily a journey, but I say the task of the writer, put it like that. I won't say the responsibility, but I would say the task of the writer.
Well, and I like the idea of definitely paying homage to where you come from, but also I think what allows readers to connect with authors and poetry is that sense of the author is really just being real, ain't trying to be fake, ain't trying to be something else, ain't trying to tell a story that they haven't experienced. And so language is a part of that, right? So I'm sure in Alabama that there's a certain way that y'all talk to each other or communicate, right? That in a way that us here in Wisconsin have no idea, right? So that type of language is exactly identifying who you are, where you're from, what is your story, and that's the realest form of art that you can ever be. It's who you are. And like so there was that line in there, 49ing up the driveway. Like 49ing is it's like what we do after a powwow. It's a celebration, it's a gathering, and you wouldn't know it if you weren't from here or if you weren't indigenous, right? But it's a way that I can describe myself, my culture, my people, my homeland, right? So it's being real, and it's so important to share that. It's so important for the future generations, but also for the ones that came before you, right? That struggled so that you could be where you are. And it's a perfect way to share the world with who you are, and no other way that anyone else can, right? How was that answer for you, Randall?
That was great. You're practicing. I see you're practicing for when you get to New York, right?
You know it. Yeah. So do we have any questions, or do you want to hear another piece of poetry? What I'm at your service. Y'all tell me what's gonna
Hey,
happen
what you
next.
got? Yeah, I know someone that has like maybe a question or just interest in terms of like, how does one begin to write poetry? What do you write about? Or just something very simple. I know you got to be curious. You got a poet right here. Take advantage.
Do any of y'all read poetry or want to learn more about poetry or know a poet? Know the name of a poet?
This is the first, for me,
No.
the first time. I mean, I was
Mhm.
the same way. I didn't know I had to be introduced to poetry, to poets.
Yeah, yeah.
And
It's
it is what
it's
it is.
it's
It's,
a whole world. It's a whole different world. There's some really great ones. I think I was introduced
we have a,
to
we have a
Langston
question.
Hughes.
I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, come on.
Does poetry always have to rhyme? No.
No, I don't think none of my poetry does.
No, mine
I don't
either.
think there was a rhyme in mine. And I think you find your style, right?
But
But no, poetry does not have to rhyme. I don't think so.
doesn't, and I think that's one of the misconceptions, when you start writing poetry, that it has to like everything rhymes with this and like that, as a rap would, right? But no, it does not have to. Even rap doesn't have to rhyme. It can actually, people can do verses in these very creative ways, and they're doing maybe a slant rhyme, but they're not rhyming. There's a few of them, but in terms of poetry, I think, it's more about the language. It's more about the line break, where you break your lines, how you make them sound to each other. That's more important than understanding like the word that's coming on the end. Like most of the time, after a while, when you begin to rhyme, if you're not rhyming in a form or anything, it becomes the same thing over and over again. So you can write that poem, maybe a great poem, one or two times like that. But after that, what are you going to do? You're going to do the same things over and over again. So I think, one of the things about it is once you understand that your language can be the music and everything that you need, you don't need to necessarily, you don't need to rhyme. And so, so you can make your words sound like 2 hours out the juke joint, bourbon breath, little Jimmy up from the choir box roll, singing precious Lord, still he reached the first note, Sister Maybell cried, a fan swung side to side, the wail and ensuing moan mirrored the preacher's scream, reproduced blue mythographies of sweat. Not one time. I don't teach it. When I teach, I teach form. So when you inform, you are rhyming. That is a form, right? Sonnet, a ghazal, or a tanka, or maybe some other form in which you're sort of rhyming. I think if you're going to rhyme, you need to understand the forms that sort of create those rhymes, and then I think you get a better understanding. Because a lot of poems, I do know poets that do that, but they can do it so smooth you don't even realize that's what they're doing. You're like, damn, we just did all that. Wow. So even with your raps, don't necessarily feel like you have to always do that. You don't. I've been preaching this too, a little bit, because you don't. You don't. And that's one of the things. How can you be different? That's the bigger thing, is how can you be different from what everybody else is doing if that's something that you want to do? Especially in today's world. I'll let you take that. That's Monique. Hold on a second. Take that. Finish that for me, Louise. That's okay.
Well,
Go ahead.
oh, you got it?
Yeah, she left. That's okay. She must have
Okay.
figured it out. So,
Um,
anyway, but that was a great question. I think a lot of times you have to start there. But it's also like, damn, everything I've ever heard about poetry is like it has to rhyme, right? So how do you get past that? How do you get past that confidence on the page? It's like, well, it doesn't even sound right, but it does. You just have to get used to it. Like she says, like if you're looking at contemporary poetry, that means the poetry that is being produced in today's world, today's contemporary setting. The ones that's making the most impact aren't doing that. I can promise you that.
Yeah.
I can promise you. They're not going to give $100,000 for rhyming. They're not. I mean, I mean, I don't want to say it like that because it's not a musical thing, it's a poetry thing, right? And so that's something people have been doing like forever and ever and ever. And I think, poets, when you start seeing a shift, I'm giving y'all a history lesson now, I guess. You start seeing a shift in that, probably in this, the early 60s going forward to the 80s. And then there's this sort of whole new thing going on in the 90s. And so in today's climate, the poets are actually expanding what it means to even be a poet. So, it's not necessarily on the page. It can be on the stage. It can be digital. It can be, with mixed media now. And so there are just so many things that poetry can do. So, and what I say, don't limit yourself by thinking about you have to stay inside the rhyme. Don't ever do that. So, good question though. Great question. Anybody got another one?
Somebody too. No.
I guess we're just teaching today. That's cool too.
That's all right.
I mean, don't you want to know, what made someone start, for those of you who don't write, or for those of you who maybe write in your spare time when you got nothing else to do and you're trying to figure things out in the world. Like, for you, Louise, what was it about poetry that sort of sparked your creative imagination to sort of was that the catalyst for you in a lot of ways to sort of survive that survival mode thing,
I think so. I don't even know how I started really writing poetry. But I remember I was probably about 12 or 13, and I used to write it in cursive. Shoot, I don't even think they teach cursive in school anymore.
Okay.
But I would just write out thoughts that I really believe that I couldn't share with anyone else, right? Because however I was thinking inside my own young mind, I knew and trusted that the safest place for those words were on a piece of paper. And that's where it came. And it became my saving grace. It became my sense of church. And then when I was incarcerated, I wasn't going to tell anybody around me what I was thinking, and then thankfully, there were some really good volunteers that came into the correctional facility and taught craft and allowed me an opportunity to sit in a circle with other writers and other poets, to be able to continue this vision or this frame of mind that I had inside, just to keep writing. And that was a blessing and a jewel all in itself, that whatever my thoughts were could be formulated into a acceptable poem for the world to see who I really was, and for myself to see that same person too, right? And connect with people in a way I never connected before, and
Hey,
tell
go ahead.
and tell stories about myself that I may have not been able to share in any other way outside of a poem, right? Because you can be lyrical, you can be theatrical, you can be dramatic, and yet still be the realest version of yourself ever.
Yeah, got you. So let me ask you this question: how many of you are going to be there on the 22nd of August? Maybe I know. Okay, so here's the thing. So I want you to I'll be there. We'll be recording on that day. So I'm gonna bring you in, and we're gonna have some beats that we've been using. Travis, who used to work there a lot, has been making some beats. He's gonna send some. We work with I don't know if you know the hip hop artist Lupe Fiasco. He's up in Boston. His whole crew left a bunch of beats for us too. We're gonna bring some of those with us. And we have some original ones that my collaborator made up. So we're gonna huddle up and workshop, and we're gonna create music, poems, and we're gonna record. So in the meantime, what I want you to do, if you can, I want you to be thinking about Louise, what Louise talked about, the realest version of yourself. So I want you to go back and write about that. What is the realest version of yourself? And so when I come on Tuesday, you know, we're gonna talk about those things and work and see what we can turn into poems and song out of the realest versions of yourself. And I'm not just saying it being hard, I'm just talking about from here too. You know what I mean? Like I can get all this other stuff, but give me some humanity too. All right. So be working on that. Mark your calendar. I promise you I'll be there. There's no doubt about it. Okay. All right. And we'll get some stuff done. I don't know if you've heard anything the girls from Alpha Unit did about a couple of summers ago. They created some great music. I'll share some with you when you come. Have you heard any of it? Okay, I'll share some with you when I come. We'll sit back and we'll listen to a lot of that stuff. All right, we'll have a good time. I'll be there for a week, so get ready. And so I I want to thank Louise because she's very busy and she's so gracious with her time. And that's one of the things I like about relationships in this community that I'm in sometimes with poets and writers. Even when you're doing things for the good, people really try to help you. You know what I'm saying? And I think anytime, just like you said, I had to be the same way when I was in Montgomery County, getting ready to go do my 5 years in Maryland, and I didn't know what. And it was a group came in and did a workshop on poetry, and I was just like you. I didn't know what the hell a poem was, but check this shit out. Excuse me. I didn't mean to curse, but yes, I did. I had been to college. And still didn't know what a poem was. So you're all right. You got me by a minute. All right. You got me by a minute. So thank you all. Let's give Louise a nice little round of applause and say thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. And I'll see you ladies August the 22nd. Remember, the realest versions of yourselves. That's going to be our theme. Day 1. All right? All right. All right. We out. All right, Jay. We out, man. Where's he go?
All right. I'll hit you up soon, Randall.
Hit me up, man. All right? Okay. Take care. Thank you, Louise. Much love. All right. Take care. All right.